Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Aggieville Alleycats podcast, where come rain, shine, or anything in between, we're here to deliver to you the Kansas State sporting news that you so love. I'm Ace Edwards, right alongside
Connor Baltazar.
And today we're going to be doing the episode that we've been talking about doing for like 2.5 months. We might be stupid.
We kind of just forgot to do it.
Yeah, we just kind of forgot to do it. But it is the football season recap, where we're just basically going to be going through the entire season, recapping it, giving out some very special awards, and then going a little bit into what we think the team will do next year, but not enough to step on the toes of the preview episode, which will come out
a while.
August.
It'll be a while.
It'll be a minute. So
June or I'd say July.
Probably July. Somewhere in there.
It's a ways away.
It's a very long time away. But welcome to the football season recap. And we're just going to start off with the most basic information we can. We finished the year with an 8-5 record, which, if you told us that when we started this show, we probably would have taken it. I feel like we would have been slightly disappointed, but we would have taken it.
Yeah, I think going into the season, we were both kind of hoping for a 9-win season. I think we were kind of ahead of the curve on that as well. Not to toot our own horn, but it felt like as we got closer to the season, a lot of people started talking about a potential 9-win season because people realized, wait, this roster is actually pretty good. And spoiler alert, it was when it was healthy, and that's the asterisk. Now, if you told me at the beginning of the year that Skylar would miss at least part of, what was it?
May as well have just been 3 games. Like he missed 3/4 of SIU.
And then
missed
all of
Nevada, all of Okie.
Missed the end of Baylor and Texas.
That's
about 4 games.
So give or take 4.5 games.
Yeah, it's about 4 games. If you told me that Skylar were to miss about 4 games and would play most of his games on the season
hobbled,
very injured, I would take 8-5. Like
I would have predicted 3-8.
Yeah, I would have been a lot more harsh if you told me that. I would have predicted probably at best 7 wins, and more realistically in the 5 to 6 range. So, I mean, getting out of town with 8-5, considering the circumstances, I think that's pretty good, honestly. And it was frustrating, you could say, because of some of the losses. Because it felt like there were some there that we lost and probably should have had.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're thinking your Baylor's, your Texas games.
I don't think we were beating Baylor.
I mean, like, I'm not just saying, like, circumstance. I'm including, like, random awful performances.
Yeah.
Like, because Skylar plays that game at a mediocre level. I mean, the way we were playing, I think we win. Because the defense was locked down that game. They were excellent. And we only scored 10 points and didn't really complete any meaningful passes until 4th quarter, and Skylar got hurt the next play.
Yeah.
So, and then, obviously, Texas, which we will talk about the Texas game a little bit, unfortunately. And, I mean, other games, Iowa State, which is really poorly coached on our part, but I don't think we really had much of a shot there anyways. Like, OU, that's a game where if we really get 1 or 2 lucky breaks, I think we win that game. I mean, we did have the lucky break until the rare double review.
Yeah, the rare and illegal double review by Lincoln Riley.
I will say the only game that I truly don't think we ever had a shot in was Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
And at the time, that really upset me because they just played a really lackluster non-conference schedule. And then they went on to be I think, the best team in the conference. And then, until they forgot how to score on 7 straight plays. So,
yeah, and then ended up literally 2 inches short.
Yeah, so maybe it's homerism, but this was a K-State team that they were close. Yeah. They were close to a very special season, and I still think they had a pretty good year, all things considered.
Yeah, I agree. On the conference record, they were 4-5 in conference. Their total losses were against Oklahoma State, a game that we just said I don't believe we ever had a shot in.
Yeah, even if Skylar's healthy that game, I don't think we win that game.
No. Starting the road, starting your conference slate in Stillwater, K-State tradition.
A tradition unlike any other.
And next year we're just starting it in Oklahoma, so we're starting to expand.
Yep, it's just the state of Oklahoma in general we start in, so.
Yeah. Then we ended up losing Oklahoma, which I don't feel like even if we did get those breaks, I feel like there are a couple of things that...
I mean, I'm thinking like the Jacardier fumble.
If Jacardier doesn't fumble, if we ended up if that play is not double reviewed, if it's just a lot of ifs stacking on top of one another.
I think that there's just as many ifs for us as for OU, because I honestly feel like offensively that game we borderline outplayed OU. It felt like it was one of the first games that we've played against a team of that caliber in a while where it didn't feel like
we were just outmatched.
Yeah, it felt like the opposite of the 2019 OU game, where it felt like we just kept getting the breaks exactly how we needed them, in spite of them being more athletic. Like CeeDee Lamb still got his that game. He ran all over us on that one play. Like y'all remember, Jalen Hurts threw for 400.
Yeah, Jalen Hurts, Jalen Hurts not good, by the way.
Yeah. Then this game against OU, they go downhill like all game. They're throwing short the entire game. The one time they truly go downfield, they throw a pick.
Yeah.
And like I think that speaks volumes to the defense. Although of course it also does expose a lot of holes in the defense, and that you can just dink and dunk them to death. Yeah. And then once you get to the red zone, you can just kind of you can dink and dunk most defenses to death. So
how do you think Tom Brady's had a career?
That is true. So it's just patience, really.
Which it's over. The nightmares are over.
Finally.
God. Then the second most winnable game, in my opinion, is the Iowa State game. We ended up losing that game. If both coaches in the coordinator room had just like a midday, we win this game. But both of them had arguably... Well, at the time, it was Mess's worst performance. It got worse, but it's definitely Kleinerman's worst performance, and it was just... If we had a C-plus day, we would have won this game coach-wise, and I will stand by that. As angry as that makes Iowa State fans.
I agree that at the very least, I think it's closer. Because, I mean, I think back to the first play of the game. I mean, yeah, it's, a 75, 80-yard touchdown from Breece Hall.
Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, Bruce Wayne, Bryson Corridor, whatever you want to call him. But I think you look back on the highlights on that play, it's literally one guy just collapsing in.
And he's not here anymore.
So, I mean, like at least it looked like that on the replays that...
No, that's what it was.
Yeah. I was going to say, that's not my expertise, but that's what it seemed like to me. And if Ace is nodding his head, it's true. So...
I know everything.
In this realm, he totally does. And I think that, that it doesn't necessarily stop Breece Hall from having an excellent day, because Breece Hall's a great running back.
Yeah.
But at the very least, it doesn't start us out a 7-0 hole 10 seconds into the game.
Yeah. Yeah. And then Baylor, we talked about the Baylor game. Texas was... I still don't even want to talk about this game. You don't burn a red shirt for someone to throw 13 passes.
Yeah. A lot of people dump this game on Will Howard. I'm more hesitant to do that, mainly because it's just...
It's not Will's fault.
I really don't think it is. He didn't have a great game, but...
Did you expect him to?
No, I did not. And
if you told me that it was going to be called the way it was in terms of offensive play calling... I would have looked at you and said Will Howard is going to basically be forced to transfer at gunpoint by the fan base. That is exactly.
Yeah, because Will, it was like we were calling a game for a quarterback that was not on the roster. Not even Skyler, I think, has a particularly great day with the way that we were calling that game. I mean, I truly don't know what quarterback on the roster would have succeeded, at the hypothetical peak of their talent with the game that was called on that day. I know this game happened a while ago, but also I do think it's worth talking about just how much that game, while Will, I'm not going to sit here and say that he had a great game, because I don't think he did.
No, he didn't.
But he was put in a horrible spot. And, I mean, if that was the game we were going to call, just play Jaron or Jake Rubley or Max Marsh.
Like literally anyone else.
Like why are we burning Will Howard's red shirt to run Deuce Vaughn Wildcat like 4 times in short yardage? Why are we burning his red shirt to throw 13 passes that
like 8 of them are screens?
Yeah, we throw 8 screens, 1 downfield ball that was a single read, 2 downfield balls, one of which was a single read play to Phillip Brooks in a jump ball situation in triple coverage.
Yeah, you could argue that's on Will. Like, both of the problems were not necessarily with the decisions with Will, it was with his accuracy, which we've gone over why he's not the most accurate quarterback. It's his front foot.
Yeah.
But I feel like the moment because wasn't like the third pass he threw was like a mid-range pass to Malik Knowles and he sailed it, and that was the exact moment that I knew, yeah, Mess is not going to trust him for the rest of this game, and this game's going to suck.
Yeah, it was that comeback route, and it was early in the game to Malik, and he missed it. He missed it high, which is weird because we ran the exact same route later in the game to Tyrone Howell, and it was a fine ball, and he caught it. But other than that, it just seemed like we weren't willing to trust him. And I get the whole argument of, well, you don't want to trust him because, you know, he's Will Howard or X reason or Y reason. But alternatively, you burned his red shirt, and if you don't trust him, just play the quarterback that you don't have to worry about burning a red shirt.
Yeah.
Like, it truly shouldn't matter. Any reasoning that can be given for the play calling in that game, there's a perfect rebuttal for it, I think, like, as to why that wouldn't have made any sense. The only avenue that they should have taken with the quarterback situation in regards to how they called the game is to redshirt Will and play literally anybody else on the
literally anyone. Play me over Will.
Put Asen over Will. Like,
I got an arm.
Yeah, but the only time that game ever looked like it had a shot for Will was when it was over, basically, in that final drive where we literally only got 2 plays off because we're incapable of running hurry up. And we ran 2 routes over the middle of the field on in routes that were just kind of more timing based. And Will made good throws.
Yeah. Because
that's Will's strength. And go figure, when we ran routes that were to Will Howard's strengths, they went well.
No, I think you're lying to me.
No, I'm not. I'm speaking the truth here. But, I mean, like, but we reminisced a lot on the Texas game. It was rough. There's not a whole lot that we can say about it that hasn't been said.
And that we didn't already say.
Yeah, that we didn't already say. But this is just bringing up memories that we haven't spoken about in a while.
Yeah.
But I don't know. The point is I feel bad for Will because the coaching staff totally wasted his red shirt. And honestly, I think that might have played just as big a factor into Mess being fired as the play calling. The play calling was awful. And the situational play calling especially was hilariously bad.
It was like comically bad.
Like, it was just...
It was like 12-year-old pressing random buttons in Madden bad.
It was mind-boggling that, like, that was what was happening. But I do think that the decision to manage personnel that poorly, because I don't think Kleiman okays it without Mess basically being like, we need Will.
Mm-hmm.
And then to have him throw 13 passes and have the one long run and then maybe 2 other designed runs the rest of the game. I mean, like, come on. Like I think that plays a big factor as well. Mixing with fan backlash, player backlash, and then play calling in general. It was a perfect storm for Mess to get fired after that.
Yeah.
So.
And then those were the losses on the year. And then we had W's against Stanford, Southern Illinois, Nevada, Texas Tech, TCU, KU, West Virginia, and LSU in the Texas Bowl. The question here is, are we okay with how the season went, given everything in context?
For me, it's a resounding yes. I have a lot of reasons for it being that way. A lot of them are context-based. Because that's just kind of, I think that's the best way to view this season. Because 8-5 in a vacuum is just, it's an average record. It's slightly above average, I would say, especially with the bowl win.
Yeah, it could be worse. It could be 7-6.
Yeah, and then when you factor in, that is true, it could be 7-6. It could be worse. And then you factor in context, and there's some things that make it worse, and there's some things that make it a lot better. Like the loss to Texas, that makes it way worse because this could be a 9-3 team right now. And
no, because then we get sent to the Cheez-It Bowl and get sawed by Clemson.
That is true. That is true. But
either way, we end up 8-5.
I guess you're right. But yeah, and then like we also have losses in there to Baylor, like, which that really just hurt because of the senior day aspect. But then we have win over Stanford, which at the beginning of the year, so many people were hung up on that game being huge, and we ended up really taking care of business in that game. We beat Texas Tech on the road in what was when we were about 3 minutes into that game, it was the least likely victory ever because it was 14-0 after like 3 minutes.
Yep.
And we come back and win by 1. We destroy TCU. We finally get over the West Virginia hump, and we beat Nevada along with Carson Strong. So, all things considered, I'm pretty happy with how this season went.
I'm not as enthusiastic, but I am okay with how the season went. Because there are a couple of moments in this game, like in this game, it's like an NCAA season. There are a couple of moments in this season where all I could think of is if X happens. And it's not one of those situations where it's like, oh, just don't do that. Like, it's not one of those, oh, just throw 85 touchdowns, like, and the season goes differently. It was like small adjustments that could be made that just weren't, but that's fine. I'm okay with the season. I will say the next question is, which game do you want back the most? I want that Iowa State game back, and I want Klein as the coordinator for that Iowa State game.
In a hypothetical, this is not on the outline, but I'm now curious because you raised this question. In a hypothetical universe where Klein is the OC at the beginning of the season, what is our record?
I'll just go based off of games that we pick up by him being here.
And assume that we win all the ones that we already did.
Yes.
I think that's fair.
Because there's not a
if we win them with Mess, it's almost certain that we win them with Klein. So.
We don't beat Okie State.
I agree.
We don't beat Oklahoma.
I agree. We
beat Iowa State convincingly.
Is this assuming that Klanderman has an average game?
Yes.
Okay, then yeah, I can get with that.
We don't beat Baylor. We do beat Texas, so we pick up an additional 2 games, and we end up.
I would give us Baylor.
You'd give Baylor.
I would give Baylor just because the way the defense was playing that game, that was arguably the best defensive performance of the season, I think, against Baylor.
I'm just taking into account Skylar's performance.
That is true. Also, another thing to consider is, does Skylar have a better day with superior play calling?
The play calling was fine.
The play calling was fine, but even then, I feel like Klein maybe does a better job getting Skylar comfortable as opposed to Mess.
Probably.
I don't know. Maybe I'm projecting, but maybe it's just frustration with how the Baylor game went. I feel like we have a shot in that game just because of how close it was.
Yeah.
Because I mean that game truly needed 2 plays to break our way, and we do fine. And we forced several fumbles that we weren't able to get. We had several opportunities that we just couldn't quite capitalize. The fumbled punt.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. I mean, there's a few tiny things that if they go our way, we beat Baylor. Klein is the OC. Maybe he does a better job adjusting to Skylar not having a great day.
Yeah.
Or he's able to help remedy Skylar's issues and scheme people open. Because Skylar was I think he was just way too hyped up that day. Yeah. LSU was the go out that he deserved.
Yeah.
Which we'll get to that. Very happy he got that. But yeah, I would honestly give Baylor before Iowa State. I know that's controversial, but Iowa State, the way that we played was just so bad. I think we have a lot more to overcome.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. Although they're not as far apart as you would think. It feels like the Iowa State game's way further apart, but at the end of the day, that was only a 3-point larger margin of victory for the other team. It feels like way bigger just because of how they opened and how the offense was just awful. I mean, the offense was not great against Baylor either, but it was mainly like tripping on ourselves as opposed to being stopped. It felt like, if you get what I'm saying. I'm rambling a little bit.
No, I get what you're saying.
But yeah, I do agree that we do not beat either of the Oklahoma schools.
No.
Although, if I had to pick one, it's definitely OU.
Yeah, I still don't quite understand how Baylor beat Okie. Well, Spencer Sanders. Never mind. I understand now. But that is the more general part of it, and everyone remembers. No, they don't. People remember the game day grade segments that we do. So now we're going to be doing the season-long grades, where we go through every single position, including coordinators, and giving them a grade from F to A+. No one gets an F.
Yep.
Because we didn't lose every single game.
Yeah. Because, I mean, the criteria is not just we are mad, we don't like them, they get an F. It's slightly more thought out.
Slightly more thought out.
I say slightly, I mean that. It's just marginal. It's just like, how do we feel?
Yeah.
Basically. How were they?
Now, the first position is always the man under center, and we separated the grades into Skylar and not Skylar, because that is actually an important distinction.
Yeah.
If it is Skylar, I gave him an A-. If it's not Skylar, I gave a D-. And the only reason it's a D- and not an F for the quarterback position is because, again, watching Messingham just poop himself every single time that anyone not named Skylar Thompson was under center was very funny. And I will continue the meme. The best Will Howard play call was made by Will Howard at the line.
Yep. And it's because Will Howard knows what he's good at. And Mess
didn't.
At the very least was unwilling to change his offense for it.
That's worse.
Which that would ring true to Mess, I think, is his lack of adaptability. So, who's to say if that's true?
Who's to say?
I gave Skylar an A- as well. Primarily because of how he was down the stretch, sans the Baylor game. He was very good against West Virginia. He had that excellent throw. At the time, best throw of his career until the bowl game.
And on the bowl game.
The one to Wheeler on that 4th down and 8. It was maybe the most clutch throw, I would say. It wasn't the best, but it was the most clutch. And then he kind of struggled at the beginning of the year, honestly, against Stanford. And when he was in against Southern Illinois, he had that really bad throw that was behind Brooks off of the pick. But, then he comes back and he plays well against Texas Tech. He plays well against TCU. He plays well against KU and West Virginia. And then he just explodes against LSU. He was exactly what this team needed. And I'm going to really miss Skylar. And I think this year he finally showed a lot of people that he's a good quarterback. And I feel like he's just been a quarterback that just lacked consistency for a really long time. And after coming back from injury, I think he found that.
Yeah, except for the Baylor game.
Except for the Baylor game, but it was nowhere near as inconsistent as he had been in the past, where it was truly a game-to-game, you don't know what Skylar you're getting.
Yeah.
And this time it was out of the last, 6 games in the year, he had 1 bad game.
Yeah,
and which we can work with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I would take that.
Yeah. And then non-Skylar, I gave a D+. The only reason I was as generous as I was basically the same reason that you didn't give an F, is that Will did have his moments. He had the great throw to Daniel Matter-Bebe. Oklahoma State to open the game on that first drive, he had some
2 dropped touchdowns.
Yes, he had some great throws that just were dropped. That was the worst receiver performance I've seen in a while. That was kind of the wake-up call that the receiver room seemed to need to go from being awful to slightly below average. Yeah, they were slightly below average. They weren't incredible, but honestly, it was all we needed, really, for the most part.
We never expected them to be world beaters. We just wanted them to be okay.
We just wanted them to catch passes.
Yeah.
We didn't want them to be burners and, be guys that they aren't, but we just wanted them to, get open sometimes and catch the ball and it hits them in the hands, basically. It's reasonable.
Yeah, I don't feel like that's an unrealistic expectation.
I want them to be receivers. That's it.
I'm not sure about that one, but
I mean, a D+. Jaron does drag it down a little, I guess, because he did not look great in his limited action. He did have the 1 touchdown to Deuce.
It's not him.
No,
that's not him.
I'm trying to be generous.
It's not him
because he did struggle, I think, but Will. I don't know. He's a tragic character to me.
I understand what you're... Yeah.
because I do think that he's better. Maybe I'm grasping at straws when I say that, but I truly do think that he's better than what he shows because I think he clearly has the athletic talent and he clearly understands the mental side of the game. There's just a disconnect there, and pair that with a lack of understanding of how to call a game with Will Howard under center. It's a disaster because when you have a quarterback that isn't quite as confident as they should be, probably, like they don't quite grasp all their talents. They have minor mechanical issues, major,
Mm-hmm.
and then pair that with just calling a game that doesn't really suit them. I mean, most quarterbacks are going to struggle in that situation because I mean, like, yeah, we can say like, oh, well, X quarterback and Y quarterback, or like, oh, Trevor Lawrence is great as a true freshman. Well, yeah, they don't grow on trees. Will Howard's not Trevor Lawrence. Will Howard is a developmental prospect that has played more games in his first 2 seasons
than I think anyone expected him to play in his first 3.
I didn't expect to really see him outside of garbage time until this upcoming season. And so, and here he is. So I do take mercy on him. I'm not as harsh on him as the rest of the fan base, mainly because I see a lot of potential in him, and I'm very excited to see what a new coordinator.
I like you, kid.
I like him,
you
kid.
Got spunk.
He's got resolve.
He's got resolve.
I like him. But yeah, D+ for non-Skyler QBs.
Yeah. Next up is the running backs, which consensus All-American.
The Deuce Room.
Yeah, the Deuce Room. No one else is left except Jordan Shippers.
Yeah.
But honestly, just off the back of Deuce Vaughn, the running backs room gets an A+.
I think any room with a consensus All-American, unless the rest of them are that bad, which they weren't, A+.
Yeah,
pretty simple.
Yeah, I don't feel like there's much discussion there.
No.
The wide receiver room, which is arguably the most interesting room, because through like 4 games, I would have given them an F.
I would have as well, because you could argue they lost us the Oklahoma State game, other than the defense's first half performance, which they didn't allow any points in the second half. So
yeah, but they put it together at the end of the season enough to where I honestly gave them a C+, because Phillip Brooks was exactly who we needed him to be. Malik Knowles he did not show the potential. He did not demonstrate that he's lived up to his potential until the bowl game, which really makes me excited for next year to see if he actually finally lives up to his potential. Cade Warner honestly stepped in and was strangely not bad. Even Landry got in a couple of clutch catches. So honestly, they get a C+. They weren't spectacular. They were what we needed them to be.
Yeah, I gave him a C+ as well, basically the same reasons. And because they just had an exceptionally awful season at the beginning of the year. They just were not good. They got better because they weren't an active liability the rest of the season. They caught open balls, and they didn't do much beyond that. And then the bowl game, we utilized them pretty creatively. Which I say creatively, it honestly is just probably standard for other offenses, but we're so deprived of like offensive creativity that we don't even know.
Yeah.
But Malik, I am excited that he's coming back. Phillip, I did not expect him to be the leading receiver, but he ended up with 540 receiving yards, which
the quietest 500-yard season.
Yeah, he was just an unbelievable third down target for Skyler. And then you add in guys like Cade and Landry to that fold, and you have a pretty solid core.
Rest in peace, our prediction of Keenan Garber. But
yeah, rest in peace, the Keenan Garber breakout player prediction. But you know what? We all miss sometimes. Yeah. So C+ for the receivers.
Yep. Next up is tight ends, fullbacks, and I feel like this might be the biggest disparity, because there is something we agreed on. It is the tight end dragging the fullbacks down, not the other way around. But honestly, the tight ends and fullbacks were so, like, the fullbacks were fine. The tight ends were painfully mid, and that to me just averages out to a C. Because yes, Jax did kill like 3 people this year, which was really funny, but outside of those 3 highlight blocks, did Jax do a whole lot other than get 4 random carries in the bowl game? No. Sinnott will be good next year. He'll probably end up actually taking the Jax Deneen role unless we just decide to run clown car formation every single play, which we might. It'd be funny. But honestly, they just get a C because they were fine.
I gave them a B. Just because I thought the fullbacks were really good this year. I felt like they blocked really well. Sinnott was a nice surprise. He was a candidate for Breakout Player of the Year, which is really depressing. And Jax had again, another nice season. He had some highlight blocks and was very consistent the rest of the time. Didn't really mess up a whole lot. Sinnott was kind of the same. And tight ends. Amatter Bebe, he was really good. He was explosive. We just didn't really utilize him all that much. Granted, he was fighting injury most of the year, but even then, we should have designed some plays to get him open because he was clearly really good at that with his breakaway runs. And I think it's a travesty we didn't use him more. Wheeler, he came on a little bit more at the end of the season. And then we saw a little bit of Swanson and Fox, not a lot. So, but I'd imagine we're going to see more of them next year unless we bring in another transfer tight end, which we might.
We might. Just give him number 0 again.
Yeah. That's our tradition of grad transfer senior tight ends. Or a number 0. And Leonard's blocked well. No, the tight end room is largely unremarkable, partially due to just not doing a lot outside of some chunk plays from Amatter Bebe. And also, they just weren't used a lot, so I don't blame them too much for it just because, like, there's talent in that room, and Amatter Bebe is really good. We just didn't really utilize them as much as I think we should have. So I don't knock them as much for that. And then I also liked the fullbacks a bit more, so that probably explains my higher grade on them, so I give them a B.
Yeah, that's fair. Next up is the offensive line room, and this was just pretty much a bright spot the entire season, which, Cooper Beebe, obviously, that's the star of the line. And then you had standouts like Josh Rivas. Ben Adler had an all-right season. Noah Johnson was okay. Christian Duffy was solid outside of Christian Duffy moments. But honestly, we call them Christian Duffy moments. That's just like average college football tackle moments. But it's also really funny because there's something uniquely funny about calling them Christian Duffy moments.
Yeah, like, I don't know why they're so funny when he does it. Maybe it's just because he's so large, because he is a really big guy. He's like 6'6", 320 or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's funny to watch, like, an extremely large person try to, like, block a defensive back blitz or something like that. Or, like, watching him trip over a yard line or something.
The sniper got him.
The sniper got him against SIU. That was hilarious. I was dying laughing for like 10 minutes in the film room after that.
It's all love. We love Christian Duffy.
Yeah, don't take this as we dislike him. He just, like, when he messes up, it's just more apparent just because he's really big.
Yeah.
Which is, he can't really do anything about that.
Can't help that.
He looks like a nice guy.
Yeah, he seems like a great dude. But honestly, the offensive line had a couple of games and a couple of moments this year, in big moments, where I'm just like, guys, you got to have that. And it's plays that they normally had. I wouldn't be as harsh on them if the expectation for them is that they if they didn't make these plays. If I thought our offensive line, the B+ that I'm giving them, which is what I'm giving them as a B+, is based on I thought they could do better. But if it's based purely off of the talent of what the line did, it'd probably be like an A-. But I just feel like there's parts of this line that could have done better at times. Like Adler and Johnson, for example. Adler didn't have any moments where I looked at him and was like, dude, come on. Other than nearly killing Skyler that one time.
Yeah.
But that just happens. Sometimes you accidentally kill your quarterback.
It happens.
Johnson had a couple of moments where he really needed to pick it up, but B+ for me.
I went with an A for the offensive line. I don't know if I'm holding some blind optimism here, Because I think part of it is I'm projecting for the future for the offense here as well, for the offensive line, that is. Because I really liked a lot of the rotational pieces this year on the line. Like Panzer, I was a huge fan of Hadley Panzer this season. I thought he was absolutely excellent. KT Leviston was just absolutely demolishing people in run block when he came in to rotate. Like, it was hilarious to watch him like sub in at left guard and then just like run somebody over. Because like we keep hearing over and over that the staff has this vision of KT Leviston as an NFL talent, but he doesn't start. And you see him run block, and you're like, why is he not starting? And then you see him pass block, and you're like,
oh, that's why. Okay. That's okay. I get it now.
Because he is so good downhill. It's nearly impossible to stop his momentum. Like, he'll run anyone over that he feels like, but he just is not a lateral mover, and that is what hurts him so much. If he could move laterally at a mediocre level, he would be one of the best linemen in the Big 12, I think, because he's already one of the best run blockers in the Big 12. And then you think back to the preseason when Taylor Poitier was supposed to be the starter and he tears his ACL in the offseason. So Ben Adler steps in. So, you think about it that way, in the entire season you're playing with a replacement level player. And, Rivas had a good year as well. BB was first team all conference. Johnson, he's really good at pulling and blocking in space. And even then he still struggled at that sometimes. Staying in and interior pass blocking, he does kind of get exposed. And then Duffy had his Duffy moments. I mean, we already talked about that. So maybe some of this grade is just me really liking the group going forward and being excited about how they grew over the season, because I think they did grow over the course of the season for the most part. But I am excited for the future of the line. But this year, I thought they were one of the strengths of the offense, so I give them an A.
Yeah. Well, that's offense, and now we can move into the defense, which will probably be a lot faster. For the defensive line, I gave them an A, just because the combination of Timmy Horn, Felix Anudike-Uzomah, Nate Matlick, I about call him Nick Matlick, that's his little brother.
Yeah.
Even Tyrone Taleni and Cartez Crook-Jones, whenever they got in, contributed.
Yeah.
Eli Huggins is coming back. It was an all-around really great unit this entire year. And the only time that I could think of that, well, there are 2 times actually. The only 2 times that I can think of where I'm like, guys, come on, I know you're better than this. First half Okie State, but that was the entire defense.
Yeah.
And then Baylor, but even Baylor, I'm like, that is the best line in the Big 12. They kill people.
Yeah.
I'm not mad at it.
And even then, they still made plays.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Nate Matlick had 1 or 2 forced fumbles that game, I think. But yeah, I gave him an A as well. I thought they were absolutely excellent this year. And I love Timmy Horn. Eli Huggins was quietly really good, because I think, at least for me, Timmy Horn overshadowed him, because Timmy Horn just so visibly pushes people back. And it's really funny when he does it. And Eli Huggins, he doesn't do that as much just because he's not 6'6", 330 pounds. Like, not everybody can be Timmy Horn.
Why don't you just get 3 inches taller and gain 80 pounds?
Okay. But, Eli Huggins, he still did Eli Huggins things. Like, he was a surprisingly good pass rusher from the interior in a 3-man rush. And that's a huge strength. And having him come back for another year, that fills what was going to be a gaping hole in the middle of the defense. Because Timmy Horns and nose tackles, they don't grow on trees. And we didn't really have anybody on the roster, I think, could step in and fill it immediately by any stretch of the imagination. So Eli Huggins coming back is huge. Then, of course, Felix was incredible this past season. He did trail off at the end of the year, but he was kind of a feast or famine pass rusher regardless. I mean, he got, 3 sacks against Southern Illinois, 4 against TCU, and
6.
Yeah, he had 6. And then other than that, he really spread them out sporadically. But even then, he still makes plays regardless. Nate Matlick is really, really fast. And when he builds some more strength, he's going to be an excellent pass rusher. K-State's going to have one of the best pass rushing duos in the Big 12, I think, for a while.
Trios,
yeah, that's true.
Khalid Duke.
I literally forgot about. While you were talking, I was sitting here like, I can't wait to bring up Khalid Duke, because he did not, and then I forgot, because Khalid Duke got hurt in the 3rd game of the season against Nevada. Hurt his knee or something. And he was like the key to this defense coming into the year. And I remember after the game, they were like, Khalid Duke is the key to this defense. We have to retool it. And everybody's like, are you kidding me? There's no way that's true. And then we were like, oh. Like, wait, they're totally right. Because, like he is the guy that made the defense work. It'd be like if Jalen Petrie got hurt for Baylor. Yeah. Like, it's the same thing.
Or Stubby got hurt for us at the end of the year.
Because Stubby was the guy that allowed us to continue to run the 3-3-5. Because he moved to that, like, edge linebacker safety.
Cash. Just call him Cash. It's the easiest defender.
The Cash.
Because it's Cash, Jack, or Star.
I wouldn't call him a star. I mean, it's the same thing, I guess.
Yeah, it's the Star.
He played the Stubby position.
The Stubby.
And he was sensational. And he was already a lot of fun playing the nickel corner before Khalid Duke got hurt. And then he became a regular starter and was just absolutely excellent. And I already missed Stubby, but Khalid Duke will be back. And as an edge rusher, he was excellent. I mean, he had some clutch sacks already at the beginning of the season. I know he had the big one against Stanford to drive them out of field goal range. And so we've already forgotten that coming into the season, we had a high-level pass rusher that was a known factor. Felix was not a known factor coming into the year, at least for people outside of K-State circles.
Yeah.
And now, going to next year, we have two high-level, you could argue two elite. And then you have Nate Matlick as the third pass rushing option on the defensive line.
Nate Matlick is your third.
I like that, personally.
There are teams in the Big 12 and teams in other Power 5 conferences that Nate Matlick is their number one.
Yeah.
Easily.
I totally agree.
And it's exciting. It's really exciting.
The defensive line has been excellent. A lot of that is a testament to Buddy Wyatt on the defensive end, and then also Tui coaching up in the middle. But Buddy Wyatt's been excellent recruiting and coaching those guys at the defensive end. So I love this room going forward, and they were sensational this year. Far beyond my expectations, which were high, admittedly, coming into the season. And if you told me that they would get an A with Khalid Duke being injured, I would have been shocked.
Yeah.
So
the next room is the linebacker room, and realistically, this is the Daniel Green room.
Yeah.
And even then, I gave them an A- because Daniel Green was not a consensus All-American. Daniel Green was very good. He's not the equivalency on defense that Deuce Vaughn is. And Cody Fletcher, Austin Moore, Nick Allen, none of those names Ryan Henningsen, none of those names inspire any real confidence. Like, they're fine. I would take them as third or fourth linebacker, Eric Munoz, third or fourth linebackers, but no one that I would really want working in a 3-3-5, which is why the Brandon Jennings, I about called him Donovan Jennings, second time I've referenced to Mr. Hurricane player, but I think that's why the addition of Brandon Jennings and even Will Honus to an extent is such a massive deal.
Yeah, the linebacker transfer work that has been done in this offseason has been nothing short of miraculous, because Brandon Jennings was a freshman All-American at the midseason point before he got injured at Maryland. He was a 4-star recruit out of high school when he's coming here. Will Honus was a high 3-star out of JUCO, and was a scholarship player at Nebraska that elected to come to K-State and be a walk-on. So, I mean, and he was an all Big Ten player as well 2 seasons ago before he got injured. So you're looking at a 3 deep at linebacker, when last year there were times where we were barely 1 deep at linebacker. But I will admit, down the stretch, Cody Fletcher really solidified. There were moments where we would have had plays broken on us that if Cody Fletcher was not a person that existed, we would have had a touchdown scored, but instead it was like a 5-yard loss.
Yeah. Because
he had a knack for smelling out screens, kind of similar to Echo Boydo and like his trick play.
Yeah.
Like detector that he just has.
He just has one like, I can smell it.
He can smell it. You can tell. And Daniel Green, of course, was excellent. He was not a consensus All-American, although I think he was criminally underrated in the all Big 12 selections, because I think he got honorable mention. And
dude, come on.
Daniel Green, I think, at worst was second team because he was phenomenal last year. And this was the most surprising room of the season to me because
we expected this room to suck. We expected this room to be awful.
I think most of the KC fan base expected the linebacker room to be the biggest weak point on the defense, with the defensive line and defensive backs sandwiching between it being good. So the fact that the linebacker room was as good as it was, where Daniel Green was really good, Fletcher was serviceable and at times playing above average, and then you have Austin Moore, who I think was surprisingly good. He was quietly solid, and then Nick Allen, who was fine in relief. You know, you have that core four, the linebacker room. Those guys, save Fletcher, all come back, bring in Jennings and Honus. This isn't a preview, but they look really good for next year. But this past season, those four guys were pretty good. B+ for me. So.
Yep. Next up is the defensive backs room, which this was honestly the hardest group to grade for me because it depends on what you're asking them to play. If you're asking them to play man coverage or quarters, they may as well just not bother passing the ball because it's not going to work. If you're asking them to play like soft squat cover 2, it was not going to end well.
Yeah.
But on the whole, the defensive back room I felt was really good. I gave them an A-, mostly because of standouts like Russ Yeast, Julius Brents, Echo Boydo, even though, yeah, I'm beginning to understand why people complain about his zone coverage, but even then it's not as bad as some people make it out to be, because a lot of people seem to make it out like if you have him playing zone coverage, it's an automatic touchdown, which is just not true.
No.
But honestly, there were pleasant surprises as well, like Ross Elder, Reggie Stubblefield, Amaris Brown before he transferred. Godspeed.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. We miss you.
I will miss you.
T. Denson. Goodbye. We'll miss you.
Also goodbye to him.
Miss you.
Literally would have started next year.
Yeah, literally would have been a starting corner. But the only thing I can imagine is he didn't want to be slot corner. But
maybe.
Whatever. Neither here nor there. They ended up getting an A- for me just because of when it seemed like when we needed a play from them, they were there.
Yeah, I agree. I give them an A- as well. There are a few reasons for that. There were times early in the season where it was rough. I felt, especially in the tackling department. Like, there was a point in time where Russ Yeast was missing a lot of tackles, and I was very concerned about him in the future. And then he went on to be first team All Big 12.
Yeah.
And he had like 9 tackles in the East-West Shrine Bowl a few days ago. So he figured it out. He's doing fine. Russ Yeast was arguably the best defender on the team. I don't think he was, but he was arguably. I think he had a very solid argument for it. But Russ Yeast was great. J-Mac pre-injury was pretty good, and he wasn't as good after he got dinged up, but he still had a great leadership role, and I love J-Mac because he's been here for several years. And then you have TJ Smith, who was up and down to start the year and played a little bit better down the stretch. Ross Elder just came out of absolutely nowhere. It was good.
Really good.
Yeah, he became really good. And
someone turned up his overall.
Yeah, it's like, I guess so. Someone was like, all right, like maybe it was like NCAA 14, but like his development was glitched. He just got it all. He got it all at once half through the year.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, Ross Elder was really good. Corners, Echo, and man coverage is locked down. Julius Brents, I think it's a bad rap in coverage because
he just got back shouldered against balls that there's literally nothing you can do. For some reason, every single time a ball was heading towards Julius Brents, quarterback got plus 100 accuracy.
Yeah, Julius Brents played excellent coverage a lot of the time this season in man, and he simply would just not quite finish at the end. Like, he'd do 99% of the coverage work, and then at the end just wouldn't have his hands in the right place, and would either drop a pick, or he would just like have his hands...
Give up a prayer ball.
Yeah, give up like a random... Like, there were like 3 of those against Stanford alone.
Yeah.
Where, like, those happened, and I was like, I feel very bad for him, because he's just playing really good coverage, but these are perfect passes.
Yeah, it's like...
Which, the rest of the game, they were not throwing perfect passes.
Nope. Just against Julius.
Yep. But Julius, he was really good. Gardner was solid in relief. Denson, I was excited for his development, and
Nope, not anymore.
Not anymore. Then
have fun at Purdue. Genuinely wish you the best.
Yeah, I will really miss T. Denson. Then Marvin Martin, as a true freshman, played a lot more in the defensive backfield than I thought he would. He was a true freshman who I expected to get among the most playing time, but I definitely thought it'd be more special teams based. Granted, he did make special teams play. He had the block
punt against West
Virginia.
Virginia.
Or he had was it the block on the punt or was it the return?
It was a block on the punt because it was recovered by Bowman.
Oh, okay.
Wait.
Or, no, it was the other way around.
No, it was the other way around. It was blocked by Bowman.
The point is that he did make a special teams play.
True. Yes.
Which equally impactful either way. And then he played for a true freshman fairly well, I think. Like about as good as you can consider or ask of in a safety role. So Marvin Martin, I like him going forward quite a bit. But yeah, this past season they were pretty good. I give him an A-. The defensive backs. Stubby as well, of course. I nearly forgot to mention him. But
how dare you?
Stubblefield was excellent. I got his barbecue sauce for Christmas. I love him.
Stubby.
I hope he is on any NFL roster. And
jersey.
He would be the first jersey that I buy.
If he makes the final roster.
Yeah.
Which, I almost made that mistake with buying an Alex Barn Titans jersey.
Granted, it's weird that he's not on a roster.
No one knows where he is.
He's just up to something.
He may be a USFL player. I don't know.
Who's to say?
Maybe. But now we get into this is going to be a longer episode, which, it was kind of expected.
It's a season recap.
It's a season recap.
We'll splurge a little.
Yeah. It's not going to be 3 hours like a recruiting.
No, we're not.
God, I hated that episode. I still do. Yeah. But the first person I want to start off with is Courtney Messingham. So, as tempting and hilarious as it would be to say F- and then move on, no, because he was not... Okay, he was bad. But the only reason I know he was bad is because I got to see what it was like in comparison to Colin Klein. If Colin Klein did not get the bowl game, Messingham probably sneaks out of here with a C.
Yeah.
But no, he ends up getting a D because there were no play calls this year that I thought, wow, that's an amazing play call. Every single game was just the equivalency. And we went on record saying that for everyone else, we were grading them for how they actually did. We specifically graded Messingham for what we thought we gave him a handicap.
Yeah.
We went on record saying that.
We did.
And yet,
and he still was getting straight B's.
He was still getting B.
He was getting
C.
He was getting C's and B's on a curve.
Yeah, bro, how do you manage that? But yeah, he gets a D just because, man.
I gave him a D+. Why I gave him the plus, I couldn't tell you. But in all seriousness, he did call a few good games, I think. He called just as many awful games and just as many totally mid games, just completely mediocre games. But the kicker is the Texas game and the game immediately following. Because, I'll be honest, I think the talent differential between the Texas defense that we face and the LSU defense that we faced is marginal, even with all the LSU players out. And the difference in performance, even with a different quarterback, that's irrelevant to me, is incredible. Just the play calling difference, the schematic changes, the willingness to adapt to your game plan, and just the general not stupidness of the LSU game. Because MS gets a D+, because, it just wasn't... He was not good. He had a few good games. I'm kind of saying the same things over and over, because I don't want to lay into him too hard. But...
No, that was that was the Texas episode.
Yeah.
Destroying Courtney Messingham.
We've spent enough time burning down Messingham at K-State. So, D+, I'm willing to move on and probably not talk about him much anymore. So
ever again.
Yeah.
The next one is Colin Klein. Just listen to our Texas Bowl recap. He gets an A. That's all I'm going to say.
Klein gets an A because he's had one game and it was really good.
There you go.
That's
it.
And he seems like he's not stupid.
Which is a very important quality.
Which we are. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing someone not stupid make choices.
True.
Because I'm just one more thing. If I can see an offensive coordinator, see them call plays, and think, I could probably do that.
That's not good.
That's not good.
That's not good.
And I thought that with Mess. I was like, you know what? I could probably call a gap power like 8 times. I could probably like call a few play action passes here and there, and like run a pro style boring offense with not proper personnel.
Which like pro style doesn't even mean pro style anymore because
it's just kind of vague.
It's spread. Like pro offense is just spread now.
Yeah, pro is just, it's not actually a pro offense, it's just the pro offense.
Yeah, it's just the pro offense.
If that makes sense. That probably doesn't, but
I feel like some people understand what we're saying.
If you get it, you get it.
If you know, you know. But the next up is Klanderman, which is certainly the most interesting coordinator to talk about.
Yeah.
Because we went from bad to one game to, oh, wait, we actually have a coordinator now.
Yeah.
If I were to grade on a curve, first year in a new scheme, he would almost certainly get an A.
Yeah.
I'm not grading on a curve. Not for him. He's not proven that he's stupid. He did very well coaching in the first year. There were growing pains at the beginning, especially losing Khalid Duke. But he figured out how to adapt to it, as good coaches do. And towards the back end of the season, we were probably the second or third best defense in the Big 12.
Yeah.
No one's beating Okie State. Don't try.
Yeah, like, sucks. But that's just the truth.
Yeah, that sucks. But oh well.
What was your grade?
B+.
Ah.
I'm just going to say all that and not give a grade.
I give him an A-, mainly because he had, in my unprofessional estimation, like 3 bad games, and they all came in a row.
Yeah.
It was Okie State, OU, and Iowa State. Granted, everybody was bad against Iowa State, so
True.
I can't hold that too much against Klanderman. Honestly, he's low-key the reason that we lost against OU, other than OU just like dinking and dunking us to death. There's only so much we could do. But if we get one defensive stop in that game, we are literally right there. Because, I mean, it was, 37-31?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I have the same sentiment if we get that plus possession with Jacardier and get the plus possession.
No, that doesn't work for my narrative.
All right.
So, yeah, you gotta go. But, and then the Okie State game, which, honestly, I think at that point, in hindsight, that's the first game without Khalid Duke. And we hadn't quite figured out that our previous scheme just kind of didn't work without him.
Or a player equivalent.
And then we kind of started to figure that out for the next couple games. Tech is when we finally got it figured out. Because it was the second half of Texas Tech where Klanderman finally was like, oh, okay.
Oh, I get it.
And then we were just straight awesome. Great defense for the rest of the season.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm looking at this list of games, and there's not a single bad defensive performance there. So, not even a below average defensive performance. They're all at the very least slightly above average. So, good on you, Clandy. A- from me. I like you. And he got a raise, and he deserves it.
Yeah, we finally actually get to pay coordinators now. It's sick.
Yeah, pretty sick.
But that is the game day season grades. But now we go into the season awards. And the awards in order that we will be presenting them is Offensive MVP, Defensive MVP, Special Teams Player of the Year, Offensive Breakout, Defensive Breakout, Most Surprising Player, Play of the Year, Game of the Year, Worst Game of the Year, and then the prestigious, in air quotes, Aggieville Alleycats Player of the Year.
You can call him the Alley Cat of the Year.
I like that.
All right, we're calling him the Alley Cat of the Year.
All right.
Calling him. You could probably guess who it is. We're not going to say it, but
I'm not going to say it.
Make a mental guess and see if you get it right.
Add us on Twitter if you got it right.
It's a fun game. Be honest, we'll know.
But let's start off with the offensive MVP. And MVP is short for most valuable player. It does not necessarily mean the best player. It means the player that is most valuable.
Because we all know who the best player was.
Yeah, it was Deuce.
Yeah.
However, that being said, I've been thinking about it the entire episode, and you and I will have a different offensive MVP. Because my pick is indeed still Deuce Vaughn.
Really?
Yes. You say your pick, and I will explain my reasoning.
I'm rolling with Skylar because we were really good when he played, and when he didn't play, things were tough. Granted, some of that is mess sucks, but also some of it is Skylar's really valuable.
The reason I say that Deuce is the most valuable player is because how much of our offense just does not work if he's not on.
That is fair.
Which, granted, it's just the power of Deuce Vaughn. And I mean that in that he, in a lot of ways, does our offense work without him? Yes. But it does not work to, I'd say, even half capacity. Deuce Vaughn is the most valuable player to this offense because even if Skylar is not under center, we can still have an offense that works if it's called competently. That's the caveat.
Yeah.
But without Deuce, it is a lot harder to do exactly what we want to do on offense.
Yeah. That's kind of my exact reasoning for Skylar. And these were, to be totally clear, I think these are the two objectively acceptable answers.
Yeah.
And anything else is laughable.
Cooper Beebe.
No.
I mean, you could make an argument.
He's the only one in the same universe as Skylar and Deuce.
Yeah.
And
everyone else, no.
Yeah. I still don't think that we could say that Cooper Beebe is the most valuable player because I think we could still have a good season with an average left tackle. Which, I mean, it doesn't really matter because he wasn't one of the two options.
Yeah.
But Skylar and Deuce, obviously, if this is like a two-person award, it's obviously Skylar and Deuce, and everybody else on the team just claps and is like, yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
But I went with Skylar just because of the importance of the quarterback position. Yes, I do agree that a lot of our offense doesn't work without Deuce. Some of that is because a lot of our offense is tailored to Deuce specifically.
Hmm.
But, I mean, if it was a co-award, this would be a lot easier, but it's not. I'm going to stick to my guns and say Skylar, even though I am tempted to say Deuce. But that's how I felt at the beginning of the episode.
If you flipped, I would have flipped.
Yeah.
Just to have the
different... Because, yeah. I mean, they're the two objectively correct answers,
yeah.
I think. I hate to be that, absolutist about it. But it's also just true.
Yeah, who else would it be? No one. Brooks? No.
I can't. Brooks was the only other skill position player that even comes close.
And even then,
no. Because he had,
500 yards, 540.
Yeah, 540. So, yeah.
Next up is defensive MVP. I ended up picking the fan favorite, Russ Yeast from Louisville, Kentucky. And it was a really hard decision to make between him, Daniel Green, and King Felix. It was a really difficult decision just because of the amount of contributions that all of those brought to the team. Especially...
Yeah. No, continue. You were talking about Russ.
Yeah.
Yeast.
Russ Yeast from Louisville, Kentucky.
Go on. You had something to say.
Yeah. Russ, to me, was the definition of clutch. The exact moment that I mentioned that the defensive back room in general was clutch. I feel like Russ Yeast was the most clutch in a room of clutch performers. When we needed him to force a fumble, he was there. When we needed him to get either a game sealing or a momentum reversing pick, he was there. When we needed him to make a big tackle, if it wasn't the first 5 games, he was there. And that, honestly, to me, just having that player that is able to do anything and do it exactly when you need it is very important, which is why Stubby was also in contention for me, but to me, it almost has to be Russ from Louisville, Kentucky.
Yeah, I think that I think you said this as well. There were 3 guys that were true contenders. It was Russ Yeast, it was Daniel Green, it was Felix Anudike-Uzomah. And, so one guy from each room, and it's the best performer from each room. I went with Daniel Green, mainly for a couple of reasons. One was that he was the key, I think, before the season to the defense being okay and being really good, because the linebacker room is such a question mark. And then also, he was such a sure tackler and just an athletic freak. He was able to almost single-handedly uplift a room from a C average to nearly an A grade. And he was just phenomenal. I mean, a lot of times he was flying around the field with the speed of a defensive back and hitting with the power of a defensive end or a defensive tackle.
And sometimes he would get kicked for targeting.
And sometimes, he get kicked out for targeting.
Banned from the server.
Yeah. But Daniel Green was absolutely excellent. He one of the very, very small amounts of 4-star players on this roster. And he wasn't even consensus 4-star. And he's finally living up to that moniker after being a Bill Snyder commit in 2017 or something, and then not being on campus for a year, and finally getting here, and then not really playing for 2 seasons. And he finally is a starter, and he's got, I think, 2 more years of eligibility.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he was really excellent this season. Athletic freak. I'm so excited to see him with Brandon Jennings next year. Or Will Honus.
We're both. I mean, it's a 3.35.
That's true. That's actually true. So Honus is really fast. So that's kind of his calling card.
Yeah, we'll see if the knee allows him to.
That's the kicker. Yeah, but yeah, Daniel Green's my defensive MVP. He was spectacular. But that's not to take apart or take away from Russ Yeast or Felix Anudike-Uzomah. Felix had a near record-breaking season. Technically, should have been. Screw the NCAA.
NCAA's stupid rules.
Yeah, and Russ Yeast had some phenomenal pass breakups this season. Against West Virginia, he had a phenomenal one. Against Nevada, he did. He was just covering the back end on trick plays really well, it felt like.
Him and Echo.
Yeah, and then he became a really sure tackler as the season went. Russ was probably number 2 for my defensive MVP. But I just really liked how Daniel Green played this year. And even against Oklahoma State, he was making plays. It felt like he was one of the few guys that was still out there making plays when no one else could. Mm-hmm. Even if it wasn't helping as much, just because the rest of the defense wasn't playing well. So,
yeah.
Daniel Green.
Special Teams Player of the Year. This is one that's probably going to be consensus among us, because although I really want to give it to Legatron, it has to be Malik.
Yeah, it's Malik. I'm with him as well. If Brooks didn't fumble on power returns as much this year and had 1 touchdown, it might have been him. But Malik, I mean, he had 3 kick return touchdowns.
He had 3 kick return touchdowns, but he also had 2 of the worst fumbles I've ever seen.
Yeah, and then he also had the one against LSU that, by all accounts, should have been a touchdown, and then he inexplicably cut inside directly at the LSU kicker, and
wanted to Antonio Brown the kicker,
which would have been hilarious. And also would have blown that game out of the water more than it already was. But yeah, Malik, yeah, he had the 2 or 3, something like. I know he at least had ones against Oklahoma State and OU. I can't remember the other one. And then he almost had the one against LSU. So, and then also kicker, we didn't really do a lot, because Tate Winkle got hurt halfway through the season. Tennant was all right, but he didn't really get a lot of opportunities. Zentner was solid. Punting, but he didn't quite do enough to earn that Player of the Year moniker. But and Malik Knowles, I think he was objectively the best player.
Yeah. Now, the next award is the Offensive Breakout Player of the Year, and no, it was neither Jacardier Wright nor Keenan Garber. No. To let you know, the 3 finalists for this award, which I guess we could do the 3 finalists format since we've done that for everyone now.
Yeah.
The 3 finalists for the Offensive Breakout Player of the Year award Cade Warner, Landry Weber, and Ben Sinnott.
Which is really depressing.
It's really sad.
Because that honestly breaks the rules of breakout player, but there just weren't any options. Because to me, a breakout player has to be someone in their first 3 seasons. And Warner and Landry are both seniors. So
I mean, Cade's coming back. So.
Yeah, Cade is coming back. Landry's gone.
Landry's gone.
Sinnott at least was a redshirt freshman. But he's a fullback.
I gave it to Cade.
I did too.
Because, like, he emerged as Brooks was the reliable third down target. Malik was the deep threat.
Mm-hmm.
And then Cade Warner was the effort receiver. The white slot receiver. He was the one.
Yeah.
Like, the high football
deceptive
IQ.
speed, high football IQ.
Gym rat.
He's a gym rat. He loves watching film. I mean, he's just a player's player. Gotta love Cade Warner.
Yeah,
he just worked so hard.
Yeah, Cade was the offensive breakout player of the year.
He was for me too. Like, and that's not an insult to Cade, but it was just
a solid season.
Yeah, because there just weren't a ton of options this year. Because our breakout candidates did not do that. Because Jacardier, no.
Jacardier fumbled once, said, I'm out.
Yeah, after the OU game, he was sent to the Shadow Realm, and we barely ever saw him again. He came into like block a few times, and that was it. Joe Irvin, he had an alright season, but he kind of already had broken out a little bit. And
he's gone.
Keenan Garber just had 4 receptions
for 75 yards.
Yeah, and that was my pick, was Keenan Garber. And
I was Jacardier.
He didn't do that. So, it's Cade.
Yeah.
And then a lot of that is because most of our playmakers this year on offense were guys that were established.
Yeah.
You know, there wasn't a lot of opportunity for breakouts, but still, you'd hope there'd be at least one. There's not anyone I would qualify. Like, Amander Bebe, I don't count that because he's a 1-year transfer guy.
And even then, I still wouldn't put him over Cade.
Yeah. And even then, he's produced elsewhere, like at a higher level. So, you know, I wouldn't count that as a breakout. Breakout's someone to me that has not produced before and is young. Yeah. But we had to make an exception here for the youth because we didn't have any other choice.
Yep.
So
kind of sad.
You know what? It's not the same way on the defensive side.
Nope. For the defensive breakout players, I had 3 choices here. Ross Elder, Felix Anudike-Uzomah, and then Daniel Green. My winner was King Felix.
For breakout on defense, I had Felix, I had Nate Matlick, and then I had Daniel Green as well. I didn't roll with Daniel Green because I already picked him for MVP, and he has produced some in the past, like he's played. So that was a bit of a knock against him in the breakout realm. And then Matlick, he has all the youth in the world. He's like a redshirt freshman, and Anudike-Uzomah is the same, basically. So I went with Felix because obviously he was the best pass rusher. He had the most production as a pass rusher this year. He was excellent. Fringe All-American. If Will Anderson didn't exist, he might have been an All-American. So he was really good. He was a lot of fun to watch. It was really funny to watch him get triple teamed and like still fight through it and just get pressures galore. So the defense had a lot more choices to pick from for a breakout player, especially on the pass rush, just because of Matlick and then Felix as well. So you could honestly even argue Spencer Trussell before he got hurt because he had never really produced a whole lot.
Yeah.
And maybe even Austin Moore as somebody that broke out. But yeah, TJ Smith because he got injured last year.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of guys that you can make an argument for, but I think the clear-cut choice is Felix. So.
Yeah. The next one is the most surprising player of the year, and my final 3 ended up being Phillip Brooks, Russ Yeast, and then Ross Elder. My God, Ross Elder, you did it. You were the most surprising player of the year because you developed suddenly into not only a okay player, towards the back end of the year, Ross Elder looked like a legitimate starting safety for like a Power 5 program.
For the last like 3 games,
he was good.
He was
genuinely good.
He was starting the last 3 games, and he deserved it. My final 3 were Ross Elder. Spoiler, I picked Ross Elder.
Yeah.
Then I also had Phillip Brooks on there because, I mean, he just had a really nice season receiving. And then other one would be Matlick, because I didn't expect him to be as productive as he was. I just expected him to play a lot and then not do as much. But yeah, Ross Elder is the obvious pick, I think, for surprising, because, I mean, last year, let's face it, he was awful a lot of the time. This year, he still had a few mind-numbing plays at the beginning of the year, but second half of the season, he was just actively really good.
Yeah.
And he deserves all the credit in the world for that. He was so good down the stretch.
Yeah.
I don't have much else to say about him that you didn't say. He was really good.
Yep.
Go Ross. Ross Boss.
The Ross Boss. The next one is one of the more interesting ones, and that is the play of the year, and there were a couple that actually came to my mind. The first one is Skyler's big-time throw against West Virginia to Sammy Wheeler. The second one is the King Felix safety against Texas Tech. And then the third one is that ridiculous throw Skyler made against LSU in the bowl game. However, I feel like this is the play that you could make the argument it just turned the entire season around. And that is the King Felix safety against Texas Tech, where he picked up the left tackle and then just dragged him into the end zone for the safety.
Yep. My choices for this were the blocked punt in the West Virginia game, the King Felix safety, and the Skyler truck against Stanford, where he ran over the defender that picked him off on the previous possession to score a rushing touchdown. And I picked the Felix safety as well for the exact same reason. I don't know if we talked about it on the show or before the show, but we did bring up that without that play, we might lose to Tech. We might win only 4 or 5 games, and Kleiman might be fired after this season. So Felix, he might have saved the season with his one effort play where he just clowned this left tackle for Texas Tech.
The poor guy.
And made one of the most incredible individual effort plays that I have seen in a long time. It was just sensational what he did. There's no way around it. He was absolutely excellent. And that I think that's the undisputed play of the year.
Yeah. Next up is Game of the Year, which is just... We separated this into 2 categories. The best game to watch as a K-State fan, and then just like the best game of the year.
Like entertainment value.
Yeah. I'm not going to go through for final 3 this one, just because I have to remember 2 anyway.
Yeah.
But for me, the best game of the year from a K-State fan perspective was the LSU game. And then the most entertaining game was the Nevada game, because it was really close in the first half. You got to see Carson Strong play. You got to see him scramble, which, considering how he has the knees of a dead person, that's not a joke. That's not a joke. It was a really entertaining game to watch because it was back and forth, but eventually one team pulled away. And it was also really funny listening to the student section troll Nevada. And also Jay Norvell having a baby fit.
Yep. For the best game of the... We had a best game to watch and best that K-State played.
Right? Yeah, it was K-State first, though. K-State and then general.
All right. The best game for K-State, I think, was, again, the LSU game. I think it was just objectively an excellent game because not only did we play great for the entire game, save for, like, the random 80-yard touchdown as time expired. Sorry, Vaughn Malone, that you got burned. I feel bad. It could have happened to anybody.
It really could have happened to anybody.
I don't even mean that ironically. It could have happened to anyone.
Pull out a trick play in the last play of the game.
Like, sick.
Cool.
You don't have a job.
I'm in your wall.
But and then also it's just the opponent it was against. I mean, I don't care that LSU was undermanned. You know, that's still like 4 or 5 stars.
Like, there's
all over the field.
Entire roster was 4 or 5 stars.
So you know what? Like, cry about it, I guess.
Literally cry about it. And they did. They still do.
They did.
They still do.
But you know what? That's all right, because K-State played an excellent game. They called a really good game, too. And they didn't take the opponent for granted. They played it like they would play any other opponent, because it's exactly what it was. And it was a great game. I think the most entertaining game of the year was the West Virginia game, because it was full of ups and downs for the Cats. There were a lot of turnovers, like the entertaining Russ East pick at the beginning of the game, where Justin Gardner lit somebody up and got a 15-yard penalty for it, like on a crackback block.
Yep.
And Russ East had a great pass breakup. That might have been Russ's best game of the season, honestly, that West Virginia game.
Yep.
And then Skyler had the incredible throw to Sammy Wheeler. There was a blocked punt for a touchdown in that game. And among other things, I'm sure that I'm forgetting. But that I just remember being really entertained at that game, because it was for a while a blowout for K-State. West Virginia came back, and then we put our foot on the gas and went ahead. So yeah, I liked the West Virginia game. Maybe it wasn't that great of a game. I just remember really enjoying it, especially because we finally beat West Virginia under Kleiman.
Yeah,
it's been like 6 years since we beat West Virginia, which is crazy.
Yeah,
the last time we beat them was 2015, before this year.
Yeah, it's been a minute.
Yeah.
But the next one is the worst game of the year. And this one, honestly, you could combine for both the worst to watch in general and the worst K-State game.
Yeah.
It's Texas.
Yeah. That was a horrible, horrible game to watch. Horrible game as a K-State fan. We've already talked about this game a lot. I don't want to talk about it.
I don't want to talk about it anymore.
Awesome.
So now, moving on to the most prestigious award, finger quotes, of all of these, and that is the Alleycat of the Year, which is just the player of the year.
Yeah.
Which basically just means our favorite player.
This is our favorite player.
And who else could it have been than the Sauce Boss? Reggie Stubblefield. Who else could it have been?
I mean, I own his barbecue sauce. I can't say anybody else.
Yeah, like,
see, he's awesome. Like, he's so much fun on the field. The only thing that sucks is that he only had 1 year.
Yeah.
Like, imagine if he was back.
Dude.
Like, I wouldn't even be a student at K-State. I would come to every single game, home or away, just to watch Stubby.
Yeah.
If he doesn't get an NFL shot, he should come back and be on the recruiting staff with Taylor Bratt.
No, he'd probably go to USFL before that.
Yeah, he'd actually be really good there if he doesn't work out in the NFL, which I think he could.
I think he actually very well could. There are a lot of people on this team that I feel like could be legitimate NFL draft caliber.
I mean, all of a sudden, Skyler.
Not this episode. That'll be a different episode.
Yeah, we'll do that a different time. Because we got a while till the draft, anyways.
Yep, we got 2 months, and we will be watching the draft.
We will.
Why did I say it like that was a surprise? What? Am I stupid? Am I stupid? No. Like, because I think I meant that we are going to be out watching the draft, because we've been out to watch the draft every single year since, like,
sans COVID year.
Sans the COVID year, which
we
all
had
watched
a
on
Zoom for it, and we all collectively made fun of Clyde. Other than you, which, like, I mean, that pick's still up in the air anyways, for some.
No, I lost the argument. Like,
it's okay.
Listen, he's still the best receiving back that was drafted in that class.
Oh yeah, that's undisputed. Without a doubt, he's the best receiving back from that class.
And Mahomes wanted him.
We just don't use him like that, because we can't even see it. But
it'd be a lot cooler if we did.
Would be. Shame.
Could happen to anybody. But, yeah, your Alleycat of the Year belongs to Reggie Stubblefield.
Reggie.
If we talked to Stubby at all, we would send him a t-shirt. His DMs are probably open. We could probably just send him a t-shirt.
We can make an Alleycat of the Year shirt. That'd be awesome.
It'd be wonderful. But, yeah, that wraps up the season recap. We're going to leave recruiting for the next episode, because this is running a bit long. But the final question that we must leave off on is, are we optimistic for this next season?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
and we will go into why in the preview episode in a couple of months. But thank you all for listening to this season recap for the football team. And thank you for listening to this episode of the Aggieville Alleycats podcast. If you want to contact the show, we are at Aggieville Alleycats on Twitter. That's capital A, and capital C in cats. If you want to email us, we are AggievilleAlleycats@gmail.com. If you want to follow us on a more personal note, I am at ACEdwards00.
I am at Connor Baltazar, capital C and capital B.
And if you want to support the show in a more financial sense, you can visit the official Aggieville Alleycats merch store, where you have such designs as Neon Alleycats and Play Sandstorm Cowards. But most importantly is thank you all for listening to this episode of the Aggieville Alleycats podcast. Where come rain, shine, or anything in between, we're here to deliver to you the Kansas State sporting news that you so love. Stay safe, Alleycats.